everybody? I'm Mike Davis. Welcome inside the den at FOX5 Studios. I am here for Sound Off Sports with my main man, James Edward Barrickman the fourth. James, you're looking good. The haircut. Tell me, we both have haircuts right now.
Both fresh, both looking dapper. Yeah.
What's the key to the perfect haircut for James Edward Barrickman the fourth?
I am the wrong guy to ask. You gotta ask my barber Jay over across the street here at In the Cut.
In the Cut
Barbershop, man. They're the best.
What do you get on the side? What do you get on the side?
I go bald fade. I mean, this is almost a week old haircut at this point, but I go bald fade at the bottom and fade it all the way up to the top. And I have him trim up the top a little bit, but
you're feeling
Jay.
yourself.
I don't trust anybody else in Vegas.
He has magical hands. You're feeling yourself today. I can see it.
Look
There's
good.
an aura about you.
Yeah, I look good. I know I do.
You're feeling good about yourself.
You as well, by the way.
Not as great. Not as great. I did get a haircut, but I'm trying to be in your league. You're also feeling good, unlike me, because Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-0.
Better believe it.
Mike Tomlin, Justin Fields in the fold. They're looking good. That defense
looks
firing in all cylinders.
elite.
Is this the best defense in the NFL?
I'd say through the first 2 weeks, you would be hard-pressed to find any defense that's playing better right now.
It's pretty crazy how good they look. It's insane.
It's the highest-paid defense in the league. They better be. You know what I mean?
Well, bringing in Patrick Queen. How has he looked, bringing in Patrick Queen?
Quiet.
Really?
Shockingly quiet. The two guys from the Steelers side that I would say have been making the most noise, Deshaun Elliott, free agent safety, and Dante Jackson, cornerback that we got in that trade where we sent Deontay Johnson to Carolina.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, so that's good stuff. And obviously on Sin City Beat, which you can go check out on fox5vegas.com and on the Silver State Sports and Entertainment Network. You can go check that out. We spoke a lot about the great win that the Raiders had in Baltimore against the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, avoiding that 0-2 hole. But before we get into why I'm a little depressed and why I needed a haircut from this Monday night loss for my Philadelphia Eagles, let's talk about one topic before that, the Bryce Young stuff. Bryce Young getting benched in Carolina. 0-2, second season. He was a former first-round pick. Obviously, we know the history. C.J. Stroud, scooped up at number 2 by the Texans there. The Bears making that deal to get Caleb in the future and trading that first overall pick so the Panthers could get Bryce Young. He looks dainty. He just doesn't look like a professional NFL quarterback with the decision-making and just the body type. Were you shocked that new head coach Dave Canales from Tampa Bay decided to bench Bryce Young and start Andy Dalton?
No, I'm not surprised by it. I think just watching the Panthers, and we know what that organization is. It's a mess. Bryce Young needs to take a step back and just, for his sake, for his long-term future, I think needs to take a step back, kind of just reset a little bit behind Andy Dalton and just try to get back in here and figure this thing out before he, actually steps back out on the field again, because he's not working with much, organizationally, from a staff perspective and from, just a roster perspective.
Yeah, the weapon stuff is not high level, the offensive line is not high level, but, a lot of quarterbacks we see, they reap the benefits of getting a year or two under their belt, like a Jordan Love, to practice and, get their feet wet before they're actually in game time scenarios and you're already calling it. But that's just the nature of the game now with NIL, with how QBs in college are transitioning all around the landscape. So, I mean, I don't know. You almost, and then you feel like, okay, well, he went 1 and CJ Stroud went 2 and look what he could do in his first year as a rookie. So why can't Bryce do that?
I was always very pro. If you're going to take a guy in the first round, he should be your starter day 1. Worked out for guys like C.J. Stroud. But that's really not always the right way to go. You look at all the rookies this year. Caleb Williams still doesn't have a touchdown pass. Jaden Daniels, I don't think has a touchdown pass yet. I don't think any of the starting rookies have a touchdown pass yet. So Bryce Young, he came in and he started day 1. I think when you look at his situation compared to other guys like Caleb Williams in Chicago. He has the weapons. It's not really a weapons thing. I think that O-line needs to figure it out.
Right.
But yeah, I think when you look at a guy like Bryce Young, it's he needs to take a step back and kind of reset before getting back.
I think it's more the exception to the rule, as we're finding out with C.J. Stroud. But let's transition to Monday Night Football and everything that happened with the Philadelphia Eagles as they faced the Atlanta Falcons. Of course, the Falcons looked horrendous week 1 as they faced your Pittsburgh Steelers. T.J. Watt was in the backfield more than Bijan Robinson, frankly. And Kirk Cousins looked crickety, he looked old, and he didn't look like himself until that final drive on Monday Night Football where he tore the Eagles secondary to shreds, frankly. And obviously there's a lot of question marks, a lot of reasons why this team potentially lost this game. And you could go to Saquon Barkley dropping that pass that stopped the clock. You can go to Nick Sirianni and his play calling. I mean, he's not actually the play caller when it comes to which play. That's more.
But he's signing off on these decisions.
Right. He signs off, but Kellen Moore is the guy who's actually scheming up these looks. And then to not go for it on 4th down, to go for the field goal, to not get the field goal and go for the points early in the game. A lot of issues surrounding this team. James, when you were texting me and watching this whole thing unfold, you were checking in on my well-being. It was like a wellness check.
It really was.
Nice, to make sure I wasn't like about to jump off a building.
I
But
was checking on all my Philly friends, to be fair.
what, in your estimation, because I already know what my feelings are as an Eagles fan, tell me what you feel from an unbiased perspective watching that collapse. Who's to blame for this game?
I think you can't look further than Nick Sirianni. He's the guy that signs off on all these decisions early in the game. You could have taken your 3. I'm pretty sure that would have made it a 3-0 lead.
Right.
First quarter. You decide to get aggressive, go for it. You don't convert, whatever. Later in the game, it's 3rd down. Clock's running. You know the Falcons don't have any timeouts. Saquon's been running great. That O-line's been getting push up front all game. I think what was it? That a 3rd and 3 maybe?
Yeah.
It was the 3rd and short, and you decide to go play action, throw the ball, put the ball in the air. Saquon needs to make that catch, but ultimately that ball falls to the ground. Clock stops. You give them 40 extra seconds. A team with no timeouts that needs to go get 6 to tie. This is on Nick Sirianni, and I think when you look back at how last season ended for the Eagles, this is a game that really, the Eagles, it felt like they were in control of for most of the game, right up until they kicked that football back to Kirk Cousins and the boys for that last drive.
But they didn't look tremendous. I think the puzzling thing...
But they were in control. It felt like they were in control for most of the game.
They certainly were in control for most of the game. And I think the troubling thing for Eagles fans is that if you look at the sample size, and let's just say instead of looking at 2024, but if you look at how the season ended last year, the last 10 games, and you take into consideration the start of this season, then you're starting to say, hey, there's a trend here. This team is falling apart. The decision-making, the choices, the reasoning behind why we're doing what we're doing is starting to become a massive red flag. And I think this all has to fall on the shoulders of Nick Sirianni. Clearly, there's a lot of issues. There's issues with the defense. Vic Fangio, the defense doesn't look good. We don't have a single pressure or sack from an edge rusher on our team all year long. Josh Sweat has done nothing. Bryce Huff, who's the replacement for Hassan Reddick, has done nothing. Jalen Carter didn't look great. Jordan Davis doesn't look great. You know, Devin White, who is the linebacker we signed.
Yeah, what? He was a healthy scratch, or what was that?
He hasn't been playing. So the defense is not looking good. And like you keep saying, my boy Cooper DeJean, who we drafted in the 2nd round.
Where's he been?
He's not on the field. He's a stud. He's got.
I think he came in for Avonte Maddox after Avonte Maddox went down. But
there's a lot of problems. So you start thinking, okay, this might be, if Nick Sirianni's not the play caller, and he's just like the dude who's signing off on decisions and his role is to be a leader, I just don't see how he's making a positive impact for this team.
I just go back to last year, and now we could go back and break it down game by game. How many in a row did the Eagles lose to end last season? It was like 5.
It was like 5 or 6.
It was something around 5 or 6
because they started off like
They were 1-loss, 2-loss team.
They were like 9-1 or something,
and
8-1.
Sitting pretty in the driver's seat for the 1 seed, totally collapsed down the stretch. And I think for a team of like the Eagles that has a loaded roster, you just need a head coach that, kind of puts them in the right direction. You don't need a Sean McVay to handle that roster. You don't need a Kyle Shanahan to guide that roster.
Right.
I have a really tough time unseeing that. And I remember you at the end of last year were calling for Sirianni's head. And I'll put it this way. Monday night's collapse against the Falcons was a microcosm of last season. Would you agree with that?
What about last season when 100%, what about when we had the collapse on Monday Night Football last year with Drew Lock looking like Peyton Manning against us when he was with
Seattle, right.
So I think the big stage here on these national TV games, everybody sees Nick Sirianni on the sideline. He's all gregarious. He's having a good time. He's got big facial emotions. But the problem is he's really making tremendous blunders. And it's a shame because Hurts looked good. He started actually running and using his legs more than we've seen him in the past. But even at the end of the game, when Kirk Cousins eviscerates us and throws that touchdown pass to Drake London, and Drake London beats Darius Slay, who's nowhere to be found, we still have a chance to actually win this game and put Jake Elliott, a tremendous kicker, in position to win. But what does Hurts do? He forced the ball. He played hero football. And that's like the two, like if you're watching every game like I am of the Eagles, you're seeing two issues that are consistent. One, Jalen Hurts has tremendous leadership ability. He has tremendous ability as a football player. He's a super talented guy. We remember him in the Super Bowl going head-to-head against Patrick Mahomes. He looked tremendous. But at the end of the day, he plays hero football a lot. And sometimes you need to know when to not take these shots. A lot of times, more than usual, he has a little bit of Will Levis in him, which is unfortunate, and he needs to scale that back. So that's the one constant. And the other constant is that Sirianni makes a lot of weird decisions. And the fascination behind it is you have to decide, are you an aggressive team or are you a conservative team? Because it's aggressive when he doesn't take the points early in the first quarter, but then it's like he's doing conservative things at the end of the game where he probably should have, gone for it on fourth down at the end of the game rather than kick that field goal and put the ball back in the hands of Cousins. So he's flip-flopping on conservatism and also aggressive football play.
I think listen, early in the game, you're down inside the 10. You want to go for it, take a touchdown lead instead of a 3-point lead early on. I'm okay with that. It's early on. But when you are late in the fourth quarter, clock's running, you have an offense that has struggled really to move the ball all night long, and you have an opportunity to, Patrick Mahomes isn't on the other side of the field this time, right? So it's not like we don't want to give him any time at all to get this football back. This is Kirk Cousins who hasn't played well all year long against, on the road versus an offense that really hasn't moved the ball all night long. And with your offense, knowing how well you guys get a good push up front with the O-line and how well Saquon's been running, it's a 3rd and 3. Run that football.
Right.
Let that clock tick. And then if you want to go for it on 4th and 1, you have that automatic push.
Do it again.
Right.
Right, and that's the big issue. So we asked everybody at home, this Eagles collapse on Monday Night Football, who is at blame for this loss? Who deserves the blame for this loss? Let's hear what our first response had to say, James.
This is Charles Asado on Facebook. He says, if Saquon caught it, it's a done deal.
Yes.
I'm not willing to put blame. I mean, Saquon needs to catch that football, but this is not on Saquon.
But it shouldn't really be on him because it's just not the position the team and his coaches should have put him in. It should have been more like, you could throw that, or Hurts could have kept it and just kind of gained a yard or whatever, and you're just running that clock down. So I think you got to think, listen, as an organization, as a team, we need this win. It's do or die. Like, the most important thing at that time is actually the clock. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's just about time.
When this all take me back to me watching this game. The Eagles just gave away a win.
Right.
They just handed over a W. And as Kirk Cousins is dicing up the Philly defense down the field. I'm sitting here thinking, because they're inside the 10, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, what just happened? And then he hits Drake London. I'm like, what did I just watch?
The craziness is that ESPN, I believe, they do those, percentages of like likelihood that the team wins.
Yeah.
When it was like 3rd and 3 on that play, it was like a 96% chance that this team wins.
The game was basically over.
So that's where analytics, and I think, a lot of times people are like, you know what, analytics, we overvalue them. They don't mean as much. No, that's where analytics matter, because that's where you're like, okay, we're in such a driving seat to win this game. We need to do everything possible to just put us in the best possible chance to win this game. What could happen? It's almost like they're making these decisions and they're like, oh, there's no chance that Saquon drops the ball. There's not even a probability that the clock's going to stop if we even throw the ball. Like, you can't think that way. You got to think like, what's the worst case scenario? And let's make sure we don't do that, because we're in the driving seat to win this game.
Hindsight's 20/20, but you have a 3rd and 3 with about 1:40 left in the game, and you decide that you're going to not run the football, and you're going to take a chance at stopping this clock. I would have been okay with you running it on 3rd and 3.
Right.
Getting a yard, and on 4th and 2,
going for
pushing this thing again, because even then,
if you don't get it,
you pinned him inside the 5 with a minute to go.
And he's got nothing. He less than a minute.
Needing 3 to tie instead of a touchdown, but
it's just, it would have made a lot of sense. What else are we hearing from people at home? So the first response was it should land on the shoulders of Saquon. We don't agree with that. What's the next response?
This is John Baker on Facebook. He says, fire the coach. This is a man who was on your side at this time, or at the end of last year, I should say.
Yeah, you got to fire Sirianni at this point. I think, we're going to see this play out.
You're going with that?
I think
come out and say it?
I think he's going to get fired this year. I really do. Because I don't think you would fire him after this loss, but I do think he's going to lose his job by the end of the year, because it's just, we're too cutesy. That's been the narrative. If you're watching these games, Philadelphia football has all of a sudden it's become cutesy. What I mean by that is like,
I don't know what you mean.
We're doing cutesy types of things rather than we're outsmarting ourselves. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
that's what Monday night felt like.
Like, why do we need to like do the flashy thing where you could just do the smart thing? You know, and I think a lot of it is, if we're looking at this from why, I think a lot of it is that I don't think Hurts and Sirianni like each other. I don't think that Hurts has a lot of faith in Sirianni. I don't think Sirianni has a tremendous amount of faith in Hurts. And I think in turn, they're both trying to will themselves in the driver's seat as the reason behind why this team will succeed and get itself over the top. So I think Hurts likes to play hero ball. I like Sirianni as a coach. I think he likes to play hero coach. And it's just doesn't make any sense. And at the end of the day, it would be better if we just played smart.
What's concerning, I think, is that they're handing football games away. And I think when you start doing that in Nick Sirianni's position, that is a recipe to quickly lose that position. So if I'm Nick Sirianni, not Nick Sirianni. If I'm the Eagles in that entire organization, it's like, okay, that was last year's team that showed up.
Right.
That wasn't the Week 1 team that showed up. We need to bring that Week 1 team back, because for 3.75 quarters, we looked like the Week 1 Philadelphia Eagles,
exactly.
And we handed it right back to them at the end of the game.
And it's like the inverse of your Steelers, and that's why I love Tomlin, because it's almost like we're going to a bar full of girls, and we think we're Brad Pitt. So we think...
You think we're Brad Pitt?
No, I wish we... I'm saying the Eagles feel like they're going into the bar, and there's a bunch of good-looking girls at this bar, and we're Brad Pitt, and we're so we're Brad Pitt, so we can come in with a stain on our shirt. We can come in looking like a slob. We can, because we're Brad Pitt. Like,
you're not buttoned up. You don't have to be buttoned up because you're Brad Pitt.
We're Brad Pitt. Like,
right.
Anybody's going to want to go out with us. We're going to be able to hit on anybody, and it doesn't matter what we do. We can look disheveled. We're going to end up winning this ball game and come home with 2 or 3 girls. Doesn't matter. What I'm saying is we're not Brad Pitt. And it's like, it would be a beautiful thing if we just treated our team almost like how Tomlin treats the Steelers. He has zero faith in this team. And it's kind of like, we're going to like, listen, we are who we are. And we're going to just like, we're going to milk everything we can out of each and every opportunity. And we're going to seize it. And we're not going to get cutesy. We're going to play smart football. And it's like, we're going to put ourselves in the best position to succeed because we don't have too much faith in our like magical abilities to just blow people off the field. So we're going to do whatever we can do to put us in the best potential chance to succeed, and we're going to take advantage of it. And I think we got to think more like that.
I mean, they have a great roster, and all the pieces are there, whether or not you believe in Justin Fields. They got sloppy late in the decision-making. Like, you take your points early on in the game. We're not even talking about this.
Right.
Or
we feel like we're going to score 40 easy.
Right.
But we're not.
You got cocky. Yeah.
You don't even have A.J. Brown, perhaps the best player on this team,
you
on the
think
field.
Mike Tomlin's going for that on 4th and 3 early in the game? Heck no. We're trying to get to 20 points.
Exactly.
And whoever gets to 21st is going to win this football game, and that's how it is with the Steelers. Granted, two very different situations.
Yeah,
but.
So that's just how I feel as an Eagles fan. But as we head to break, James, let's hear the last thought we have on this topic from one of our great viewers at home.
At Utah_get via X says, Kirk Cousins is to blame, ...
I mean, listen, he came back to life, Kirk Cousins. But yeah, you don't know about that. It's Kirk Cousins looking like he's back to his old self.
That was, for a man who looked like a corpse for a shell of himself for 3.5 quarters to just turn it on when he needed to late. I've said this earlier. I said this earlier, but like, what the heck happened? After watching everything, I'm like, Kirk he wasn't doing anything all game long. He didn't look like this.
We had 1 sack, I think, from Milton Williams. First of all, everybody knows, and their mother, Kirk Cousins, his kryptonite is pressure. How are we how are we not blitzing the hell out of this guy? I mean, you gotta. Vic Fangio doesn't like to blitz, but I mean, we need to blitz. We're not generating pressure from our forefront. We need blitzing.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that about every quarterback, right? Their kryptonite is pressure.
But Kirk Cousins in particular, he's coming off an Achilles injury.
100%.
He's almost 40 years old.
Yeah, I was just shocked to see Kirk Cousins turn into what he turned into after looking the way he has looked through the first game and almost 2 games.
Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see what happens. Welcome back to Sound Off Sports. All right, so we're going to be talking some great stuff right now about our football rebels right now. UNLV football, of course, as we just mentioned, they went to, on Sin City Beat, we mentioned this on most of our programming here at Fox 5, we're talking about this, 1978. That's when the Rebels football team took the leap to Division I. Now they're 3-0 under Coach O-Dog. Barry Odom has this team at 3-0. They just went on the road, went to Kansas City, beat Kansas, and now they're ranked in the top 25 coaches poll for the first time in program history. James, you're the producer of Reb Zone here with Paloma Villacana. The excitement surrounding this team, a lot of good stuff going on. What does it feel like, and how big of a deal is this for this city and for fans of the Rebels?
I think it's so cool because me being a giant college football fan, Las Vegas isn't somewhere you think of as a college football town. And so when you have a program like UNLV, who historically, let's just call it what it is, they've been horrible for pretty much their entire time in the FBS, to see them now have a real head coach and a real vision, and to see all of those things now with all the work they've been putting in starting to come to fruition is amazing. Because in year 2 now of Barry Odom, we're not sitting here talking, and Ray Brewer brought this up, where normally it's like, hey, if they win 6 games back-to-back years, let's throw the darn parade. We're not talking about winning 6 games. They're already at 3-0. We're talking college football playoff for UNLV which is unheard of.
Yeah. This year, college football playoff, it's expanding to 12 teams. It's very exciting stuff on Sin City Beat. As you mentioned, Ray Brewer, managing editor of the Las Vegas Sun. He's talking about how exciting this is. Steve Cofield of Cofield and Company on ESPN Las Vegas. He's talking about how Matthew Saluka looks like the white Lamar Jackson. This team's got
Sluka Doncic.
Sluka Doncic.
What the kids are calling him.
Like, he's got so much positive reinforcement with that. Of course, he's got to throw the ball a little bit more. We got Ricky White, we got DeJesus, we got Woodard on defense. I mean, a bunch
of Power 4 transfers too.
Great looking players.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is this is a team and organization that we tried this a few years ago with the whole Marcus Arroyo situation, trying to get him from Oregon. He didn't do anything to change this organization. Now we see what it's like to get a bona fide head coach, a guy who frankly in a few years could be coaching a different organization with the amount of interest that he's really going to garner from what he's done in a short tenure here. But, what we want to pose to you guys in the audience and what we've already gotten some great responses on is, what does this look like for UNLV at moving forward in terms of conference play? Because Mountain West is shifting. Pac-12, of course, really dissolved in a lot of ways because it's really a two-team conference right now. Right. It's not super functional. You got Oregon State and Washington State as the two teams in the Pac-12. So, James, educate our audience a little bit because 4 more schools have now entered the mix for the Mountain West, and we kind of want into the Pac-12, and we want to know if we think UNLV can move from that Mountain West and follow suit.
Yeah, it's an ever-changing landscape. You know what I mean? This is the era that we're in college football now. It's trying to position yourself not just for survival, but to thrive. And you look at these top schools like Oklahoma, Texas. They started this whole new, I'll say, phase of college conference realignment when they went from the Big 12 to the SEC. That led to USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington going to the Big 10. Then you saw the Big 12 move with making Cincinnati, BYU, UCF, right. Houston came in. I'm shocked that I am just recalling this as eloquently as I am because there was so much more. And now you got teams like SMU and Cal. They're in the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Right.
It's crazy. So UNLV is going to have to, they're going to have to act here because now their conference that they've been in since I think I read it was 1998, the late 90s, right. They got in the Mountain West, is it looks like it's in a dying conference. So they're going to have to make a move here.
So with all this excitement, of course, UNLV 3-0, a lot of excitement this season, but let's not just think about this season. Let's look towards the future. UNLV and this marriage with the Mountain West, what is it going to look like in the future? James, give us a response. We asked everybody at home, do we see UNLV following suit and ultimately moving like a lot of these other schools into the Pac-12 from the Mountain West? What's our first response?
This is Steve Kelly on Facebook. He says, UNLV needs to fight to get into the Big 10. Pac-12 will be the Mountain West 2.0. Let's pump the brakes. You're not UNLV, I love you. We're not Big 10 material just yet.
I mean, basketball is a big brand with the success that basketball has had in the past. Yes, used to be. But we like what Kruger's doing. I think I have an interesting question for you. Do we think that maybe like getting asked to the dance right now, I'm going to use that analogy from the Pac-12 might be like, okay, a girl asks you out who you're not really feeling to go to the dance with you, but it's your first offer. And then as the season goes on, if we do become a top tier team that gets invited into the college football playoff, or, you become homecoming king, or you're the quarterback now of the football team and you weren't at the beginning of the school year. Now Amber's asking you out to the dance and she's the biggest cheerleader, that everybody wants to be with at your high school. All of a sudden, it's kind of like, well, maybe we're going to get better offers. I mean, do you think that is a possibility for UNLV where maybe we're going to get something a lot sexier than this new Pac-12?
Yeah, I don't think the SEC or the Big 10 is a possibility anytime soon. Maybe 20 years from now, 10 years from now, if UNLV somehow becomes an NIL powerhouse. If you're thinking Big 10 and SEC...
You're delusional.
You're delusional. Okay, you need to go talk to somebody because that's crazy talk.
What about ACC or Big 12? I mean, Big 12. There are other conferences that might be better than Pac-12?
See, now I think,
Because let's
and
be
I might
real.
be biased here.
These other schools, these 4 schools that are entering the mix. Remember, right now there's 2 schools in the Pac-12. In 2026 is when Fresno State and all these other schools are going to be entering the mix. So, is there a chance that maybe we would be plucked by a different conference?
Yeah, I think the only other realistic option is what my man Dylan Kelleher on Facebook threw out, is the Big 12.
What does Dylan say?
This is, again, Dylan Kelleher on Facebook. He says, no, Big 12 is the better option. Pac-6 is just the Mountain West with Oregon State and Washington State, and he's absolutely right. It really is. It's just going to be the Mountain West with the addition of Oregon State and Washington State.
Now, let me just throw out a question out there. What do you think the chance is, James, that we actually did have an offer on the table when all these other schools got that offer for 2026 to go to the Pac-12, but behind the scenes, there's so much good faith and belief that we're trending in such a good direction that perhaps we are going to want to field our offers a little bit more than just taking the first thing given to us. Is there a chance that actually we were given that offer and we're just holding off to see what happens?
I definitely think that's a possibility. When you have a guy like, a guy leading your program like Barry Odom, in a city that has so much NIL potential.
You always talk about this.
I know. It does.
Tell us why again.
You
say this in the back office all the time.
I say it all the time. When we're in the era where we can pay players and we can just funnel money into the athletic program.
What's more Vegas than that?
There's nothing more Vegas than that. We can put all this casino money, this entertainment money. We can put it into our football and basketball and every other program at UNLV. UNLV should be an NIL powerhouse, and that's why I don't think the Big Ten or SEC is coming calling anytime soon, but the Big 12 with Brett Yormark, who's already looking at other schools like a UConn and some of these other ACC schools who might not get a Big Ten or an SEC invite when the ACC implodes. He's probably looking at schools like UNLV, who is on the come up as a football power, assuming Barry Odom stays, and has all kinds of other good things in the city in which it resides. When it comes to name, image, and likeness.
I feel you're 100% right on this, and hopefully that is going to be the future for this team. I think top priority, obviously finishing out this year strong, hoping we can punch a ticket into that top 12 playoff. If that happens, we have to make sure we do everything in our power to keep Barry Odom. I mean, you have
give that man a blank check, whatever you want.
You just need to keep him here and get some. You got to start building up a foundation. You got to start building up a powerhouse and get a little bit of turnover. Like we don't want turnover. We need to see somebody build this program from the ground up like he has, and to see it through. And if that happens, I think it's going to help basketball. It's going to help every sport at UNLV.
Well, because football runs the show in these athletic departments, right? They're the ones making all the money, paying for all these other programs that are quite frankly losing money.
Yeah.
I think if you're UNLV and you're thinking long term and you're thinking, hey, we need to keep Barry Odom around, I'm calling the Big 12. Hey, we need to get into this conference, or else we might lose our superstar head coach to whatever SEC Big Ten school that comes calling.
Yeah, you need to get into that bigger conference, but we have a lot of good things going for us. That's why it's really like we almost should be a little more picky choosy, because you have the Fertitta complex that is a beautiful practice facility. Players get to play at Allegiant Stadium, which, I mean, listen, traditionally in college football, do you want to play at the big house? Do you want to play at
You want to play at those college football cathedrals.
But we don't live in a world with that at UNLV. A lot of schools don't have that. So to play in the next best thing, if you don't have that, perhaps the best NFL stadium on the face of the earth, I mean, from an actual amenities and just field and the glamour standpoint.
And not even that.
Allegiant Stadium's great. So it's kind of cool. I think that should be
it should be a recruiting pitch.
Yes.
Absolutely. And not even that. Not even just the stadium in which you play might be the greatest in the country. You're getting exposure right next door to an NFL franchise.
100%.
So if you're looking to play at the next level, hey, the Raiders are right here watching you every Saturday too.
Why did the Steelers take Kenny Pickett? Because he was at Pitt and he was in their training facility all the time.
And you're 100% right. You're not even.
No, I'm not making that up.
That's correct.
That's actually why they fell in love with him.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this guy and his long hair, he's the next Tom Brady, you know?
Yeah, and that's a recruiting pitch for the University of Pittsburgh, too. They share the same facilities.
Right.
Practice facilities.
No.
Not, UNLV and Raiders don't
not 100%,
share the same
but
facility.
But it is a big selling point. So I think this is where we're left with. And, before I make this point, let's get another response, because I know we have a lot here.
Yeah, we have quite a few.
So let's hear another thing before I say this.
Kaylor Steven via Facebook says, would have already been invited if they weren't being weighed down by the lesser institution up north.
I mean, so that's one of the points that a lot of people are talking about, is that for some reason there's a lot out there in the media currently that UNLV and Nevada are kind of like...
Are somehow tied together.
At the hip. They're attached at the hip. It's kind of like, in order for us
and
to go, we need to also be able to bring along UNR.
Yeah, if we're going to the Pac-12, us and UNR are a package deal, or we're staying, both of us.
I don't love that.
That's a rumor. I don't know how true that is.
And I don't believe that either. But, all right, let's hear another response we got from people at home.
This is at JRDNGBP2X.
Wow, what a name.
Via X, he says, UNLV doesn't have the money to pay the $18 million buyout fee to the Mountain West Conference. Otherwise, it probably would be a lock.
Oh, they definitely do. You don't think they have that money?
I'm not sure. I'm not, behind the scenes with the finances of the athletic department at UNLV, but I was reading from an outlet in Seattle that it might be more than 18 mil for them to get out of the Mountain West, more like 30 mil. So I don't know what that would look like. Like I said, I'm not behind the scenes in the athletic department to tell you this.
It's just to me, I think the money you could make by making those moves would probably supplant whatever that cost would be, I would assume. But...
Now, is it worth paying that money to buy out to go to the Pac-12? Or is it worth paying that money to buy out to go to the Big 12?
I think that's the right question. I think it's more Big 12. And listen, I don't think the Pac-12 thing is as hot as people think it is. I mean, let's review the teams again. Right now, it's Oregon State and Washington State. And
it's the Mountain West 2.0, just with Oregon State and Washington State.
It's just a new look. So I think UNLV should be gunning more for Big 12, Big 10, SEC. I really think they could start looking in those types of ways. Here's, to me, the two-pronged method to get to one of those elite conferences. One, it's making this college football playoff this year. Two, I think we need to see a couple of our bona fide studs, the Ricky Whites. They need to make it to the league. Like other recruits need to see, I could go to UNLV, get drafted in the first, second round, and develop and actually contribute in the NFL. Like, that's a big thing for University of Miami for years, which lost it when I was a student there, but now it's kind of refining it, is there was that trend that they set where each and every year they had the streak of the most players being drafted in the first round by a school.
Yeah.
And you see that. So it's like, if Clinton Portis is getting drafted and Willis McGahee is getting drafted, like when you start seeing that turnover, yes, Ray Lewis goes there. Ed Reed wants to go there. That was a big thing that informed the program. So
it's a snowball effect.
We need to see that a little bit with UNLV.
100%. And I think that's why getting Barry Odom to stay is so massive. And I think part of getting Barry Odom to stay is getting your butt out of the Mountain West and into one of these, really the Power 4 now.
Yeah.
You gotta really. If I'm UNLV and I'm serious about keeping Barry Odom around, the Pac-12 is not an option. I think you got to get in the Big 12.
Yeah. And you start thinking like even, Mayava, and him leaving, we're going to start getting to the point where maybe guys like that are going to say, wow, that was a mistake.
Yeah. The grass isn't always green, type of thing.
So that's what we got to see. Let's hear another response we got here.
This is Glenn Emus via Facebook, he says, just my opinion, but how will a 6-team league pull in a better TV contract considering it's made up of mostly Mountain West Conference teams? I don't get it, and I think we should look towards the Big 12 anyway, a much better conference all the way around and better recruiting areas.
100%. Yeah, I think the overall sentiment from people who really know college football and what they're talking about, I don't think anybody's super jazzed up to get asked to the dance by Pac-12. It's kind of like we should be getting it.
Yeah, it's like, of course, it's the new Mountain West.
So, yeah, I don't think that's a tremendous selling point. Before we go to the break, James, I just want to ask you, you are our resident college football nerd. You know all about college football. What else is the missing point? What is the other thing that everybody at home needs to know just about this and how this shifting landscape is happening in college football?
I think what is most important, when you're a school like UNLV, who, if we're going to be honest, there are 130 some FBS teams. And with the ever-shifting landscape where you have the Big Ten powerhouse and the SEC powerhouse, and those teams that are chomping at the bit, that are trying to get into those conferences, it's about not being one of the ones left behind. So when it comes to conference realignment, you need to be proactive instead of reactive. And so, like for a UNLV, for example, and I know that they got guys working on this. We need to get out of the Mountain West sooner rather than later. It's just a matter of, is it going to be the Pac-12 or the Big 12? Point being, take-home message, don't get left behind, UNLV.
All right, there you go. As we head the break, James, let's hear one more response we got from someone at home.
Kevin Ziegler on Facebook says, yes, the Pac-12 holds weight and has more money and better national exposure than the Mountain West. I would like to see UNLV and Nevada both go together. I'd also like to see North Dakota State in the new Pac-12.
All right, welcome back to Sound Off Sports. Right now, we got a little sink or swim time, James. Listen, interesting stuff. Usually Woj bombs are about something happening with one of the 32 NBA franchises. Today, the Woj bomb was about Woj himself. Imagine a Woj bomb about Woj himself. Adrian Wojnarowski with ESPN, after 7 years with the worldwide leader in sports, is actually leaving news, and he's going to become the general manager of St. Bonaventure men's basketball.
The Bonnies.
It's pretty crazy. He's an alumnus of...
Oh, I didn't realize he went there.
Yes,
okay.
He's an alum, so... he went there. It's his alma mater, I believe. And, so it's interesting to see not only what we were talking about in last block and how, NIL is impacting shifting of conferences and schools leaving, going, all that kind of stuff, coming and going to different conferences, but it's also impacting the actual jobs within college athletics. Having an actual general manager role for a college basketball team is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and how cool is this for Woj? I feel like a lot of people in this business, in the sports media business, they get into this business because they couldn't hack it actually on the field.
Right. Or their dream is to be a general manager.
Right.
I remember years ago, John Hollinger, if you remember that name, he was a writer for ESPN, I believe. He was doing a lot of analytical basketball writing. He ended up getting a front office job with the Memphis Grizzlies, which I believe he still holds. So that was something where we saw, journalists, media members who have an interesting scoop or perspective on the sport end up getting front office roles.
And Mayock did it with the Raiders too. So I just think, for a guy who's been doing it, in the sports media world at the highest level for so many years, to get in with his alma mater, to be able to help out his alma mater in a new role that actually, where you can actually affect the outcomes for your alma mater on the court, I think is so darn cool for him. Because I feel like a lot of people in our business, that's why they get into this business, is because they can't get those kind of jobs, or they couldn't, they weren't athletes.
It's also just, as we're wrapping up today's show, it's fascinating. I know we always bring up Sydney Sweeney on the show because of you, James, but it's kind of like, listen, when you hire Sydney Sweeney for a movie, you're not just getting her acting prowess, you're also getting all of the followers, the millions of followers that she has on her social accounts into the mix. So now you're baking into the film an audience of people who are potentially interested in this movie just because Sydney Sweeney is in it. So in a lot of ways, St. Bonaventure, a middling kind of program in the Division I landscape for basketball, all of a sudden, Woj is bringing his millions of followers, his celebrity, his star power. All of a sudden, that actually might move the needle from a team that's kind of in obscurity to more of a lower middle end D1 program.
No, I think that's a great point. I talk
so
about
Woj is Sydney Sweeney. That's what I'm saying.
Woj to St. Bonaventure is Sydney Sweeney to your movie. No, I think that's a great point because we're in this new era of NIL, right? And you just need eyeballs on your program. And when you're a little basketball school like St. Bonaventure, to get a huge NBA name,
right?
Even if he's not a player or a head coach or somebody in the front office, to get somebody with so much, national recognition to your program, you need to leverage that in recruiting and in everything. I say this all the time with Pat McAfee at West Virginia, a smaller football program in the grand scheme of things at the Power 4 level. Pat McAfee might be the hottest thing in sports media right now. We need to lean into everything he might bring us.
Don't even the Colts. He has a booth that the Colts get. Like the Colts give him, they lean and they give him a whole box. So it makes a lot of sense.
It's the same thing.
But listen, that's why you guys tune in to the Sound Off Sports Show here inside the den at Fox 5, because where else are you getting a comparison from Woj and Sydney Sweeney in the same sentence?
Yeah, basically the same person.
It's the same exact person. James would love to date both of them. Same with me. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you're always checking us out at fox5vegas.com and online on our Facebook and Instagram and X pages. We're always asking questions, and we want to know your thoughts on the hottest topics inside the sports world. Until next time, that's James Edward Barrickman IV, Woj and Sydney Sweeney's significant other, and I am Mike Davis. We will see you next time here inside the den on Sound Off Sports.